Deepwater Junior High. Those words came out of the mouth of the lady who helped us lease our apartment in 2015. My mom had asked about the school arrangements for my sister and me. Deepwater was a middle school in a district called Deer Park, neither of which I'd heard of the previous times I'd come to Texas from India. People say that middle school has the greatest impact on a kid for the 3 years that they're there. I agree. These crucial stages of my life were molded at Deepwater and changed my mindset, making me a much better and happier person. Had I not gone to this school, I just wouldn't be who I am today. Going to Deepwater was strange at first, but I expected as much. It was a new school after all. I noticed it was much further from the rest of the district's campuses, in a pretty deep part of Pasadena. As such, most of the people who attended were Hispanic, like over 88% Hispanic, albeit in a school of only around 650. Look, there I am. Indians and Hispanics relate so much, it's almost unbelievable. We have a lot of home-cooked meals, we come from immigrant families, and we put vapor rub on our chests to cure colds. I remember hearing a joke that India is the Mexico of Asia, and yeah, it's pretty accurate. Going to school and making friends was fun, and each memory I shared with them strengthened that attachment. I learned very small fragments of Spanish here and there, essentially acculturated to my friends, and eventually participated in traditional Hispanic things like quinceañeras, which gave me experiences that I'll cherish for years to come. Those 3 years at Deepwater were, without a doubt, the happiest years of my life. We were just like any normal kids. We'd stuck together through a lot of things, like Harvey back in 8th grade. We'd really grown into a family. The others wouldn't be so nice to us. Sports, an essential part of the school experience for some. A few would even take it as the only part of the experience. Whenever Deepwater would play almost any sport, we would go into the matches demotivated and prepped for defeat, only part of that mindset stemming from our skill. Everyone from the rest of the junior highs always talked about how much Deepwater lagged behind in sports. Football, volleyball, basketball, Fairmont, Deer Park, Bonnet. Any order of those schools always came into ours high and mighty and reigned victorious to no one's surprise. They knew that they had some sort of advantage in all of these sports, except soccer. It's because y'all are Mexican. Yeah, we were good at soccer, but only because the other teams were almost hesitant to try. They're all Mexicans, so they must be really good. This stereotype almost felt like a handicap. Other schools thought the only thing we were good at was soccer, which, yeah, I can see how that may be perceived, but when the other teams just don't try, it's almost insulting. Having that way of thinking and just not trying is one thing, but explicitly shaming us for it was another thing we had to endure. One of my friends from Deepwater told me a story of how one time he and his team were away for a track meet, and after the game, they were sitting in their bus awaiting further instructions from their coach. We had just finished our district track meet at Pearland High School. We didn't perform too well, but we still outdid the athletes from Fairmont. We outperformed them just enough for us to start getting pestered and teased for our color and culture. They began to shout insults at us, but none really caught my attention. Not until one of them called my team beaners. I was shocked, because it really proved that no matter what we did as a culture, we could never win. If we did bad at the meet, then we would have sucked at every sport. If we did good, then we were beaners and wetbacks. Sports weren't the only thing that undermined Deepwater as the fourth forgotten sibling to the other schools. Our district has what's called a swing choir, part of our chorale program. The choir is composed of incredibly talented singers from every junior high when they get to the upperclassmen positions. One day, every 8th grade choir student in the district was bussed over to the South Campus to preview the swing choir's performances of that year's Hello Texas show. After all the singing, each member introduced themselves with their name, a hobby, and of course, the junior high they attended. Immediately after each person stated their alma mater, the respective junior high section roared with applause and cheer. Each section got to applaud, except for Deepwater. It was humiliating overhearing the others talk about how none of the Deepwater kids made it. The reasoning was, they probably dropped out before they got the chance to audition. Our star scores and grades in general also fell behind our peers. The other kids' justification for this was, they're poor. Well, they're not entirely wrong. Deepwater is a Title I school, meaning that the campus receives extra funding to aid the education of the attending students, because they're at risk of failing or living at or near poverty. And I'll admit, I'm pretty poor too. But the other schools saw that as a weak point in us, only because we attended school in deep Pasadena, which is a demographically poor area. The thing is, when writing the script, I found that both Fairmont and Bonnet are also listed as Title I schools. Now, I was kind of in disbelief because I, along with my friends, went through junior high suffering the blight of being poor in comparison to the rich schools when, in actuality, they were almost in the same situation. After all that, it was almost time for our freshman year at the North Campus, where all 4 junior highs merge into one class. However, one day of being together was all it took for something to irk us. Sometime around the end of our 8th grade year, we were told about plans to tour the freshman campus. This was unprecedented in the district, and everyone agreed that it was a good idea to let us dip our toes into the deep end. We got off the bus and were directed to seating sections in Gaines Mason, North's auditorium. We went through orientation, where they just told us about general high school things like dress code, grades and GPA, etc. And they really tried to drive home the fact that all 4 junior highs are no longer the distinct groups of Fawns, Bobcats, Vikings, and Pirates, but now we were going to be one family, the Deer. But for now, we were still us. The next part of the orientation was touring the campus itself. We split off into schools, and then into smaller chunks that were more manageable by the avid kids, our tour guides. Personally, my group didn't bump into any of the schools, but one of my friends did. She recalls, when we were walking through the math hall, there were a bunch of us, and it was the passing period between bells, and obviously, us being there made it louder and we were all crowded together. So people started to ask where we were from, and then after we replied Deepwater, they had some sort of realization, and one of them said, "No wonder there's a bunch of your people here." It was easy being around people of my own culture, even though I'm half. But getting to high school and not being surrounded by it was often difficult. It felt as if we were shielded from the racism and stereotyping in our school, so Deepwater was like a safe haven. After 8th grade ended, it was time to actually attend the North Campus. The first day, it was obvious that we were just little kids and not high schoolers, because everyone was forming seating cliques based on who went to their school. People were blatantly giving us looks when we played around the world icebreakers to introduce ourselves from Deepwater, as if we had just kicked a puppy. The first few weeks at North are rough, I've learned. Everyone is willing to stay inside their little shell of their junior highs and not willing to try anything different. There was one beam of light that truly helped us get through some things at North. Mr. Scott Davis was the North Campus principal, but his secret was that he was Deepwater's principal before his current position. Well, it wasn't really a secret, but just something people thought of about him. Mr. Davis really made the transition to North much easier for us. If I remember correctly, Mr. Davis was the one that added a new slogan to North's portfolio, "Standing as One." That branding was meant to say, "Hey, we're Deer now, forget your differences." He really tried his best to consolidate that fact. The 2019 North Campus Spirit shirts had the word Deer in all caps on the back, and from each letter stemmed the name of a junior high. The Deer were composed of these parts, and we had to accept that. Eventually, the students collectively stopped caring about it, about other kids' so-called heritage. We really were supposed to be standing as one. But there was something about Deepwater kids that was just different. Both our peers and even teachers saw that. I was talking to one of my teachers during a school event, just talking about random things, how class was going, my plans for the future, stuff like that. And then he just kind of put the conversation on hold to ask, "Durjoy, you went to Deepwater, right?" I answered, "Yeah, why?" Then he started to explain that he could tell. He said the way that we talk was different and more mature. He said that he probably couldn't have had a conversation like the one we were having with the others. It may have been a little far, but it certainly fed my ego. Our culture makes us who we are. Attending Deepwater felt like it was a culture itself. Everyone in the school knew each other, and we had the same values. It was a place where we felt safe, even as we went into high school. Another one of my friends talked about how this bond helped us stay happy. So far, in my high school career, I've been surrounded by people who don't know who they are, struggling to be someone, struggling to find a home. But because of my experiences at Deepwater, I've been told where I belong ever since I enrolled in junior high, and I, as well as many others around me, discovered a home and formed a special bond like no other. One that would prove to be so helpful and beneficial when it came to high school. I found a place where I could be accepted by those like me. I've also seen other people in high school struggle not only to be accepted, but to accept themselves, which leads to self-destructive mindsets. Since I went to Deepwater, I accepted who I was and understood there were others like me that experienced what I was going through. Of course, we eventually also got along with the kids from the other schools. I have a lot of friends who aren't from Deepwater, some of which I consider my best friends. I'm not saying that this discrimination against Deepwater lasts our entire high school lives. The thing is, when kids are in junior high, they're at the age where they're extremely impressionable. When their culture is repeatedly used against them, they start to become ashamed of it. I know I was, at times. Starting high school is already a generally worrisome experience, but going and expecting everyone to hate us was hard. I believe that the other junior highs see us in a bad light, and Deepwater is heavily misunderstood. If there was some way to somehow bridge that gap, I feel it could lead to better lives for the Deepwater kids and for everyone else. But what do I know? I'm just a Deepwater kid.